Much. I think, as a consumer, I think we always take it for granted as to how difficult omnichannel could be. We serve online, we expect that we're going to see the same product in an offline store, and then we also assume that the message across social media would be the same. So I think that session really highlight how difficult and how integral it is to really coordinate across all channels. For the next session, we're going to be focusing on actually the more siloed channel that Kun Phumsaran mentioned earlier. So today we're going to be looking at the various channels where you could sell your product. So for example, as a brand or as a retailer, where could you sell your product to online? One, you could sell through an online retailer. The second one, you could sell through a marketplace. Or perhaps you really want to sell through your own branded store or even on social commerce channels such as Line. So for the panel today, we're going to have the experts and operators of these various channels to really kind of help you understand better what are the benefits or maybe the pitfall of selling through these channels as well. So the panel today, we have Mr. Alessandro Piscini, who's CEO of Lazada Thailand. Kun Pawoot, Pongvitayapanu, MD, founder Rakuten Talat.com. Salisa and Landy, GM of Kiehl, L'Oreal Luxe Thailand. And the panel will be moderated by Rafael Gallo, ecommerce Director of Channel Management. Please welcome the panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today we have a very diverse panel on this topic of selecting channels to go online. We have obviously two successful marketplaces in Thailand, Lazada and Tarad, but also Kun Salisa, who was one of the first mover in luxury brands, actually in Thailand and in the region to go online through their own web stores. So we will cover today the topic of basically where to start to sell online, what are the pros and cons of different channels, etc. I will start with a few slides to give an overview of the different channels that are available right now in Thailand and kind of what are the things to look at when selecting a channel, and then we will have further presentation by the panelists and a Q&A. So the first question usually that we have to address when we meet a brand that is not selling online in Thailand or in the region is why. So why sell online now? Why do e-commerce, right? I think this chart is one of the answer. Basically, what we saw in 2015 is an explosion of brands selling online, of the sales of these brands. Of course, we are still at levels that are pretty small compared to other global levels like Europe, the US, or China, right? But definitely, it's a channel that is growing at an extreme pace. And when we look at this slide, right? I mean, it's brands that are pretty significant already, right? So we are looking at L'Oreal Group. We're looking at Nestle, we're looking at HP, AIS, etc. So these brands, these leading global brands are actually doing right now very well online and especially with very strong growth. The question then is how, right? I mean, how to start selling online? In ecommerce, we really believe about multi-channel, right? We think that multi-channel is the key in succeeding online, one of the keys at least. And there are two reasons for that. One reason is that, well, I mean, if you look globally, right, if you look at what is happening in other markets, in more developed markets, you see that multi-channel is happening everywhere. The second reason is that multi-channel essentially only has upsides and very little, if no, downsides. Multi-channel allows to obviously increase your sales because you can tap into more customers, your existing customers, but also allow your brand to be discovered by other potential customers. Also, you're not limited to some channel, some format of channel. You can benefit from all the advantage of different channels, all the features that are, each marketplace has particular features that you can exploit. So overall, I mean, obviously this chart that you see here is the situation in the US, right? But if we look at Thailand and if we look at SEA, what are the channels today that are available to sell online? Well, I mean, it's a pretty fragmented landscape, right? It's a landscape that has so many channels that are available. You have marketplaces and e-tailers, you have social media, you have deals website, you have your own web store for a brand, right? Today we will focus on a couple of type of channels, which are marketplaces and brand web stores. Why? Because those channels are the channels that give the most control to brands, and usually those are the channels that brands really want to make right. They really want to try those channels and to have a strategy that is very differentiated for their brand, right? So a couple of questions that I will try to address, but obviously it's only a few elements at this stage, right? Is one, marketplace versus brand web store, right? That's often a decision that has to be made by a brand, and we will see later that those are complementary channels, right? And the second question is, when you look at the marketplace, where do you start and how do you select the marketplace, right? So brand web store versus marketplace, we think that those are two complementary channels, but obviously they are very different models, right? On the marketplace will definitely be superior in terms of general economics, right? So on the marketplace, you don't have a huge investment, you don't have fixed cost. You also have like much more customers that are already coming to the marketplace. But the brand web store, a huge advantage, and a lot of brands care a lot about that, is the control that you can get, right? So you can get, you can control your image very well on a brand web store. You can control, you can make it look like exactly like you want. And I'm pretty sure Kunsa will give us a lot more detail on that later through our own web store. You can also control your CRM data. You can get all the data, where are people coming from, etc., which you can't get necessarily on the marketplace. And the final thing is that you can control your economics. You can control, for example, your basket size much better. If you are a brand that sells low value item, then you can control your your basket size much better. So overall, I mean, this is just an illustration, right? I mean, all brands have different situations. I mean, if you look at electronics versus FMCG versus luxury, everyone will have like a different answer for each of those criteria, right? But it's more like a framework to look at it. What we believe is that both of these channels are complementary. However, marketplace are usually much faster and easier to launch for a first-time e-commerce use, right? So if we look a little bit deeper on marketplaces in Thailand, right, we see that there are several types of marketplace. So you have like generalist B2C like Lazada or specialists like Zara will focus more on fashion, or Moxie on women's e-commerce like mom and baby and beauty. And then you have more C2C marketplaces. Once again, we believe that you should not limit yourself to one particular channel, but you should try several channels. However, it's always better to focus on a few marketplaces and not to launch like that many marketplaces, especially in the first time, to build best practices and then to roll them out on other channels later, right? So how do you choose the first your first marketplace that you want, or your first couple of marketplaces that you want to launch first, right? There are a few factors, obviously, right? So popularity and traffic is probably one of the key factors. How much traffic does the marketplace get, and how well does this traffic also convert into sales, right? The cost of sales, so what's the commission level? What are the fees that the marketplace will be charging? The marketing support, this one is a very differentiating criteria, because to launch online, you need a lot of marketing support to give visibility to your brand on a marketplace. And second, even when you are running this marketplace, you have to realize that your product competes against hundreds of thousands of other products, right? So you need to make sure that the marketplace will promote your brand and make it stand out among all these products. And a couple of more secondary criteria would be like the category positioning. So some brands like fashion brands or beauty brands, for example, will have very strong positioning requirements. So they will want to control also what products they appear with. So that's why some marketplaces are restricted, for example, to fashion or to beauty. And then finally, the back end and the more operational side, right? So how easy is it to use the marketplace system? And can the marketplace integrate with channel integrators, for example, which will make your overall job easier of running this marketplace, especially if you have several marketplaces. So from my side, that was just a very brief overview of the criteria. And now I will let, I think, Alessandro discuss about Lazada and what they are doing.
Thank you very much. So I think, first of all, really thank you for having Lazada here and the big opportunity that e-commerce and Google, I think that's an amazing exercise. I think when we started 4 years ago, all these would probably be unthinkable. Probably this room would be half empty, and probably there will not be so many important person like on the seller side participating to this event. So maybe let me just very quickly share one story of how Lazada started in 2012, and how things have moved from there. I think when we started, we didn't have a warehouse, we didn't have stock, right? So we listed a few thousand products on a website, and we decided to go and buy this product from any supplier when they were sold on the platform, right? Today, Lazada has 20,000 square meter warehouse, 5,000 meter distribution center, more than 150 logistic hubs across the region. But the most important thing, it has 10,000 sellers on the platform. So it has SMEs, brands, listing in excess of 2.5 million items. So I think in a very short time, in a time, a normal phenomenon would probably move from infancy to something. It's just, booming. So I think e-commerce in Southeast Asia, e-commerce in Thailand, it's just been booming incredibly. So I think it's now time to start focusing a lot more on this channel. I think it's now time to start thinking of how to make this channel even more successful. And I think, this is happening just because people are changing the way they behave, and they are changing the way they spend time with their media, they spend time with their mobile phone, they spend time with, like the shopping overall. So when you talk about Lazada, I think Lazada has a unique selling point for you guys because it's across every single relevant market in Southeast Asia. So today we have operation in 6 countries. They range from Thailand to Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, and very recently also Singapore. But the most important is it gives you one single way to access this region. Everything is the same, all the same system. Most of the people that you're going to meet are the same. I think that makes very easy to sell on the platform. What we are trying to do here is, I think a lot of you have been listening to our listener. A lot of the people who work in the industry, they've been listening to speech of Jack Ma, right? He was the founder of Alibaba. I think, he always talk about something which is called ecosystem. And I think, that's something that we really want to bring forward in this part of the world. So we want to build an ecosystem for you guys to be able to sell on the platform. I think e-commerce and making e-commerce successful is all about ecosystem. It's about having the right partner, like ecommerce, Kiehl, Thaipost, having the right seller, like there is a lot of you here, but also having the right value proposition. So I think that's something that we are focusing a lot on. And I'm very proud to see that a lot of faces of people that already work with us in this room. There is a lot of brands, there is a lot of former Lazada alumni working for other companies. I think that's part of our mission to build the ecosystem. When you look at Lazada in Thailand, I think it's clear that one of the points that Raphael was pointing out is about popularity and traffic. The reality is traffic is nothing more than people that walk into a shopping mall, right? So if you have a shopping mall with 50,000 people per day, it's very different from a shopping mall where you have 200,000 people. The chance of selling are much higher. The chance of giving visibility to your products and your brand are much higher. I think these are two graphics that shows a little bit the popularity of Lazada and how the investment has developed. But I think what is really clear here is that it takes quite a significant effort to grow your popularity. And I think every single seller has to also work to gain popularity on the platform where you operate. I mean, to have just a store in a very popular shopping mall would not make you a successful store, right? We know that how many business close every day in very popular shopping mall. We have our office in M. Quartier. I think of the map of the new 200 stores that are there, in 6 months probably there will be a turnover of 30%, right? So not every store will be successful. So I think it's not only the success of the marketplace platform, but it's also the effort and the willingness and the power and the investment that you guys have to put on the platform to make it a success. I think the other point which is very relevant is what we are doing in Thailand and what we think we've been doing differently than other platforms. We know that e-commerce, but it's going to be mostly mobile. We know that in the world there is a clear trend that people are accessing internet through mobile devices. So in Thailand only, I think there was some metrics from GfK reports that were saying that there is around close to 1 million smartphone internet-enabled devices sold every month for the last year, pretty much. I think these are all people that would probably have access to internet and then to e-commerce only by using a smartphone. So that's why we decided to focus heavily on mobile. We decided to focus heavily on mobile internet. And we decided 2 years ago to launch, first of all, the Android, then the iOS application. But most importantly, in particular in Thailand, we decided to partner up with Line and to be on the platform and to be close as much as possible to the consumer. We know they spend a lot of time on the devices. We know that they spend a lot of time going on YouTube. I think, if I'm not wrong, this is a country where YouTube has probably the largest usage in terms of time spent on the channel. I think Facebook is one of the top engagement. I always tell when I was in London, I could rarely get 10 likes from my friend. Today I'm in Thailand. Yesterday I changed my profile picture. I went diving, and the picture today has already 80 likes. I think that is not because of me. I don't think I'm that popular. It's just because people like to spend a lot more time on this platform. So as you can see, we basically focused a lot on mobile, and that resulted in a massive shift of sales from desktop platform to mobile and application. And I think this is, of course, has driven two things, right? One is that we reach more up-country people. So that's resulted to move our share of orders from 70% Bangkok in 2012 to 70% up-country in 2015. And I think that's a clear point of strength for everyone who wants to sell on a platform when you know that you can reach people that otherwise would be difficult to reach. Everyone in this room knows that retail penetration in Southeast Asia, also in Thailand, outside of the big city, is far from what we expect, right? My city in Italy is 1 million inhabitants, and we have probably, I don't know, 250, 300 shopping malls. We have street full of stores, we have probably 5 Louis Vuitton. Then if you go to the equivalent in a city north of Thailand, like Khon Kaen with 1 million, if there is one shopping mall, we are already at maximum. So I think that's give the opportunity for you to meet a demand that otherwise would be very difficult to reach. I think how we managed to make the shift, right? So I think one of the ingredients where people were there, on the mobile phones, they were spending time on Facebook, online. We decided to reach them, with our mobile application, with our presence on social media, with our presence on chat app. I think the other big point that we did, we had to give them a significant assortment. We had to give them, the products they really wanted. I think one of the big differences that I see compared to other marketplaces is that we have a huge investment on the commercial side. We have more than 100 people fully focused on making the seller successful on the platform. So we have a very strong category management team that is able to spot trends, to support the brands in going on the platform. We have also very strong, brand partnership team that helps brands like L'Oreal to build. I think it's not off now. Yes, to build their presence on the platform. So I think this is pretty much what we've been trying to do. And one of the key things that I was always asked, right, it's what it needs to sell on a marketplace platform. What is the level of investment that I need to make? So as I told you, you can pick the most successful platform, but without a level of effort, you will not be able to break through. So I think, to be successful is really needed to have a team, to have people fully dedicated to this effort. I think most of the brands, they've realized recently, they put together resources. But I think, what is really key is that you need to have a key relationship manager. So you need to have a person that is responsible to handle the relationship with the marketplace platform. I think we are still very far from saying that we can handle 100% of the business with automatization. We are not in China yet. That will come later. I think, the second point, you need to really have people that understand what the customer wants on the platform. What people buy online is very different from what people buy offline. So you might have, like a very successful product in the offline store, and that product might sell nothing on the platform. I think, the way you market it, the way you sell it, the way you price it needs to be taken in consideration. The third point, which is very important, is e-production. I think there is a lot of asset that needs to be produced to reach the customer. There is one important topic, which is content. I mean, people need to be able to take decisions based on the content and the information you provide on the platform. I think having a very detailed content is something that is going to help massively your sales. So the customer can go through a full customer journey and they can take a decision on the platform. The last point, which is also very relevant, is the pricing, campaign management. So there is a lot of gimmicks that goes on the mobile website. There is a lot of gimmicks that goes on the desktop. There is a lot of campaigns. I think all these needs to be managed and planned by the team. The last point, I think, which is very, very, very relevant, is fulfillment. So I think most of us might take this as a secondary point, right? But I think the most important things of all, and then on this e-commerce, and a lot of people can comment as well, is that the logistics part, the operation. The customer, most of the time, the relationship with the customer is 90% done in a traditional retailer when the item is sold, right? At the moment the transaction is done, you have, after-sales service. But the reality is in e-commerce, the moment the people press buy, it's probably only 5% of the journey. Now the product needs to reach the customer. And this is a massive investment in effort. It's an investment in making sure that this happens in the best possible way. An happy customer, because of deliveries, a long delivery time, wrong item, they tend to buy online 20 to 30% less than other customers. So I think it's very important that every time we have a customer, we make sure that we meet our promise in terms of delivery and logistics. So I think that's one of the key points for us to look at. I brought in a very short case study, and I think just to show how a brand can be very successful on a platform. I think we have a lot of retailers that they sell on our platform. I think the most relevant case is Tesco. I think what I would just kind of stress out here are two things. One is that you need to have investment. So if you want to have a store that can reach 25,000 orders a day, you probably need to have a large team behind to support it from a commercial, operational, and marketing perspective. And also you need to be able to think in a very different way from the way you think on a traditional channel. So I think here is, it's one of the examples that I want to just show one picture. So I think this is the before and after, right? So like before is the way Tesco was managing, their warehouse. And after is when they realized that customers were unhappy on the way the product were fulfilled. So when you have, like wrong item delivered, I don't know, for 5 or 6% of the items sold, or you have, long lead time because you cannot find the item in the warehouse, I think that's when things go really wrong. I think, that level of focus that they put, you can see the massive switch. And, moving from few happy customers to 98% happy customer would probably double or maybe make it 3 times the sales on your platform. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Alessandro. Now Kunsa will present us, the success story, I think we can say that, of Kiehl's web store.
Thank you. Okay, I'll step over here. Okay. So I've been asked to talk about why brand.com, but first of all, just for those of you who might not know Kiehl, so what is Kiehl since 1851? Kiehl is actually founded as an old world apothecary in the New York East Village 165 years ago, so a very old brand, but has evolved into a luxury skincare brand with very unique positioning, whereby we have a very strange but cool mix of a natural blend with science and a little bit of New York quirks. One other thing that you have to bear in mind for Kiehl is that we are a advertising brand, so there's no traditional advertising, and we rely a lot on word of mouth, which of course now in the digital days that becomes really important to have that digital word of mouth as well. And we give free samples out. That's really our advertising. It's a unique positioning where we think that if customers get to try, then they will buy because the product speaks for itself. I'm telling you this because it will come into why our own brand website has to be the way that it is. A little bit more background is that since the partnership with L'Oreal in 2001, Kiehl has now expanded to over 40 countries worldwide. And in Thailand, we launched in towards the end of 2007. And right now, we have 13 brick and mortar stores. All of them, except 2, are in Bangkok. Our upcountry stores are only 1 in Chiang Mai and 1 in Phuket. We do have an e-retailer. We work with Central on Central Online, and we have our own e-boutique, as we call it, or our own brand.com, which was launched in September 2014. So, why brand.com? Why Kiehl.co.th? First of all, you have to understand it's similar to what Kun Jum shared from L'Oreal before, that as a company, very supportive on e-commerce, but we were actually the first luxury brand to launch in Southeast Asia on a Kiehl.co.th. There are other markets who have launched their own Kiehl.com or other countries, but part of it is that Thailand was actually a very challenging market for physical distribution. If you see from the chart there, you'll see that there's, our competitors who we benchmark, say like a similar skincare brand or with positioning that is similar. They can range from having anywhere between 20 to 55 stores, physical point of sales, where Kiehl has only 13. And why is that? I mean, we've had, we're now 8 years. Why is it so difficult to expand? So I have to kind of show you a picture, because if you haven't walked into a Kiehl store, you might not know what it is that makes it so difficult. There are a few non-negotiables that make Kiehl's. Brand image is so important because you have to get it globally right. Shoppers shop globally now. You need we need the wall, we need the floor, we need our sample unit, we need the shelves to make it look like we're an over apothecary, we need the chandeliers, we have motorcycles, it's our New York quotes, we need neon sign, and we have our very, very beloved Mr. Bones, our skeleton. So you can go say hello to Mr. Bones if you ever walk past, that's his name. And it's not easy to just plop that one into a 20 square meter space or 15 square meter space that other cosmetic brands or skincare brands can do. If you walk around in department store, you will know that they're kind of, okay, here's your square and go ahead. So we do have a lot of things to fit in, and it won't just be the right brand image. Productivity is something we really care about. We think that with our 13 stores, I can say that we can do more in these 13 point of sales than some of the other brands do in their 20 or 30 point of sales, because we think that the quality of the staff, the image, the customer experience, the real experience of this luxury retail is what drives the brand. And so we don't really want to lose that. Of course, from a business standpoint, you also dilute your P&L. In the end, it's a lot of investment to build a store that looks like that. And then we say, okay, how do we deal with this issue? Of course, you're all in MNC, you have okay, you need to gain market share. How do we overcome this? We say, okay, we still have to look to expand, but there are other best practices in other markets. The US, you say, okay, well, the US, their market is so developed, but it's, it's the #1 e-boutique in L'Oreal. It's basically, Kiehl's is the best performing, Kiehl's.com is the best performing brand.com within L'Oreal. And they didn't just get there overnight, but they started it when, they started it early. We want to be there when things get moving. We want it to start early. China is now 10% share of business. And fortunately for us, we do not need to wait for the global demand where the company is very supportive if we can meet all the criteria, although it was a little bit of a painful process to go to. But another reason other than distribution is also the image of the brand and the CRM. I'm showing you some of these things is because we talk a lot about the brand image, but if you have your brand.com, and Raphael said this, you have a full control of your brand experience on how you want it to be done. We're not even there yet, but we can say, okay, this is how gifting should look like. And within luxury retail, this is so important, and you think, oh, it's just like gifting. But no, it's not just gifting. It's like, if you've seen The Intern, the movie, I don't know whether any of you have seen, I was that crazy woman that Anne Hathaway was, who orders her own product and see, oh no, it's not wrapped right. You can ask Raphael, because then I came back and was like, guys, you didn't wrap it right, And then samples and service and promotions, you have to be in full control of that. And customer database is like gold mine. In the end, you're creating this relationship. Luxury retail is not like, okay, you just buy and you throw away. You want to create a love and emotional connection with them. You want to own this CIM loyalty program, have full control. We talked about how we integrate. I'm very pleased that we managed to integrate offline and online loyalty program to be the same, so that people can actually choose. It shouldn't be the consumer who say, okay, if I buy offline, how come I get this, and I buy online, I get this. We need to think about the consumers and know that, well, it's their choice and their convenience, and maybe this one person will shop both online and offline depending on their mood, depending on what they want. They want to try something new, maybe they want to go talk to someone, but they want to replenish something. Maybe they're just like, okay, I don't want to bother and come and click online. So that integration with online, offline is really important. That relationship management is important. And part of it is digital awareness. Being there, we were having a very old, static marketing site. It wasn't doing much. Mobile is so important. Having launched this in partnership with aCommerce, it helped us to create a mobile responsive site that is fully functional e-commerce. We can control more. We can, look at it, analyze the data, and understand the conversions. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't know, and understand whether our marketing actually works. And also the limitation on marketplaces in the way that can we control the brand or not, which we talked about before, that you can't really control as much. And also as a company, we also have certain rules about which marketplaces maybe we can go to online. And you know, how have we done so far? I wouldn't say like we're like, okay, super you know, successful work in progress, but what we see is a good trend. There's limited cannibalization with offline stores. What we see is that we grew significantly last year, about 25% year on year for 2015 offline. I don't have the e-com data because we only just launched. So I just give you the 23% quarter on quarter. What you see is a trend that is going in the same direction, which is really important. You know, you're not actually, one is growing and one is like going down. And more importantly, because of this integrated CRM, we actually could know that these customers who buy online are mostly new. 77% of them are new customers. And 61 of them actually came from upcountry, which if you remember, I said that we didn't actually have like that many distributions upcountry. So we are reaching new customers that we don't have distribution. And these new customers also repeated. We want to work on the repeat rate more, but I think part of it is we integrated the CRM program towards the latter part of the year, and we think that it will improve now that we have it more fully functional. We have more database. Email is very difficult to get offline, in fact. You're asking customers to fill in data, and then you're relying on your salespeople to you know, key in correctly, which doesn't always happen. It's right now, Kiehl.co.th contribute to 2% of our business. It's total 3.5%, in fact, if you include our like central online business, and we hope to get to over 4% this year, which is higher than what I understand from ecommerce team of the industry average. So in the long term, what I see is I think we're talking a lot about user experience. We want to work on like getting more sales, of course, but we want to get to be loved by our customers the way that they love us at the store. And how to do that, because we're the brand who say, okay, we have to give samples. We haven't figured out how we're going to bring that same experience of giving sample before you buy to online yet. But somehow maybe we'll work it out. We'll maybe have consultation. One of our key things is that we tailor our samples based on the consultation that our staff gives. And maybe you can have a video chat with, you know, on mobile or something, or, you know, it has to be like, okay, I'm chatting and, okay, this is my skin type, and okay, now I understand more. And it's more interactive and get people to really have that. And more O2O elements like, you know, buy online, like pick up offline, consult offline, go back buy online, or you know, even better, like you buy online, you pick up, and they already gift wrap for you because you're going to dinner next door and you're going to give it to your friends. You don't even have to carry it from your home. So, and then I'd already talked about online and mobile, sorry. The purely online e-tailer, could it be a possibility? If we can control the image, possibly. And there's also like different, you know, channels coming up. So that definitely could be something we consider. The main thing is to focus on what the consumers want and where they're going and what their habits are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for sharing. I think we got a lot of insights from those interventions. I would like to ask a few questions now. The first one would be to the marketplace participants, right? So Alessandro and Pawoot. In 2015, we saw a lot of brands go online for the first time in Thailand, but there are still so many brands that are not yet online, right? So what is your focus in 2016 to get those brands to finally try online on your platforms?
Okay, so I think when I look at brand and principal participation to e-commerce, and I think things have changed dramatically since the last 18 to 24 months. I think one of the biggest levers that I feel will bring more and more brands online is the fact that by default they have big target in switching your traditional marketing spend from traditional channel to digital. And then this will give them the need to find alternative way to market and also to reach different audience. So when we started in 2012, I have to say no one will give us more than 20 minutes of time. Today, things are like a level of interest is changing dramatically. Our focus is to make sure that we can meet what the brand is asking on our platform and to create the right ecosystem for the brand to operate on our marketplace. So when you say that you have a low level of kind of personalization, I think that's one of the points where we will be working a lot. So we will be working a lot on giving opportunity to brands to have more than what today we offer in terms of shop-in-shop, to create a website and a customer experience that is very close to what the brands demand, but also in particular to give the opportunity to brands to have access to information. I think one of the biggest points that everyone is telling about the power of Tmall in China is that Tmall is not only a marketplace, but is a data mining company. So the level of information and the level of details that they are able to share with brands is something that we are very far from where they are. And this is, I think, is something that we will be working in 2016 and 17. So from one side is to give them the opportunity to personalize as much as possible their presence on the website, so more sophisticated shop-in-shop, more sophisticated marketing channel, more sophisticated retargeting. But on the other side is to give really them the opportunity to understand what's going on the marketplace. So where your brand is vis-a-vis competition, how many times people search for your keywords, how many views has this particular item. I think all these are things that we are quite far, and I think it will be the next step for making the platform more successful. On the other side, I think everyone has a big pressure to meet e-commerce target. So I think suggestion I can give to everyone here when it comes to brand is to take that very seriously. Listing 200 SKUs on a platform will not make you meet your target. You need to have resources and focus to make it happen.
Thank you. Pawoot.
Okay. When I started the e-commerce like 16 years ago, in that time, many brands don't want to go online, but some of them go to online. But in that time, the people thinking that they go to online just have the website, just that. And then they have a budget to creating website, and they not prepare a budget for do marketing and everything. They just know people in that team. That means the many brands that they go online, maybe since maybe 2000 until a few years ago, most of them fail because they cannot generate sales to online. But now today, when the e-commerce is changing, and when the e-commerce is booming, a lot of technology is coming, and also in terms of the internet penetration is growing very fast. Mobile is coming. That means the customer base is getting larger. That's why now today many brands start looking into the online. And some of brands still moving to the wrong way. They say, hey, I want to do online. They just start a website. Just that's it. That is still wrong. Because if you want to move to online, you need to prepare your team, you prepare your budget, to prepare the marketing, analytics, and everything. That is really for brand to moving to online. That is something like it's wake up many brands. Something like maybe Amazon in USA, in China, Alibaba is already wake up all the people, all the brand in all over the world that hey, it's time for you to go to online because everything is there, customer is ready there. And technology is there. Just only use. It's not. It's time to go in there. That's why I think 2016 many brands gonna go to online more and more. But how we can supporting them and how brand can go to the customer to the right way. That is the best one because if you going to the market, right? But if you don't have right marketing strategy, if you don't have like tools and like something like a go-to marketplace or creating your own brands, if you don't have any kind of this strategy, I think the way that you step into online is gonna fail, for sure. But if you have something like you prepare everything, and to sell something, especially for brand or something like especially for local brand. But if you want to sell something, but you're still thinking that you want to sell to local, I think it's totally wrong, because you sell to online, you have a local brand, you're creating something, you're manufacturing something in Thailand. But if you want to sell only to Thai people, I think you limited yourself. But if you can sell your product, local product, to somewhere else, to America, to England, to anywhere, because online is really close to customer. That means if you're local brand, please think about how you can, leverage your brand and sell to online all over country. That is going to be the best thing for the brand for this year. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Kun Salisa, so in 2014, you were the first L'Oréal Luxe brand to launch a web store online in the region, right? The whole Southeast Asia region. So what have been the challenges that you had to overcome, like internally and externally to achieve that?
Okay. In that time, actually, it was if I have to say, it was like pain in the ass to get this launch. I think everyone is very supportive, but if you work in a large MNC, there's several approval processes. One of the key things was to cut through all these approvals. Everyone said, yes, like we want you to do it, but you have to prove it on a business case and then going through like lots of loops, and then you also don't have resources. I think one of the key things is that you have to kind of be able to navigate your internal politics and get through that quickly to get it launched. It was really difficult because I think it took us more than 6 months just to get all the approvals, and from I can't even remember how many people, and because it was so new, no one really knew who had the final say in the end, and it's just a typical like kind of corporate thing. But the other thing is we didn't really know ourselves and what is the best like model, because sure, you have the US to look to, you have China to look to, but in the end you're a different market. You're not China, you're not the US, you're nowhere near like developed as that, and there's not anywhere near in Southeast Asia who we could do it. But we decided to take the plunge, even though with limited resources, with this much pain, because we wanted to be ready when things go boom. Like, I think it's too late, and we talk a lot about speed in this conference, and I think it's just too late to wait for it to happen, and then you just be catching up, because part of it is the technical knowledge and the skills to be able to, you kind of have to learn on the job. I mean, none of us like e-commerce expert on the brand, we're retail people, and you have to start somewhere, and without having all this knowledge, you kind of struggle through it, but you have to just like have the faith and be committed to it, and it does pay off, eventually.
I have another add-on. Okay, that means if you're starting with e-commerce, do not expecting that the sale from e-commerce is going to be the 2-digit from current the total sales. It's going to be like starting from smaller, because some management, hey, I'm expecting like 10% or 20% of the total sale from the whole company. That is not possible in the short term. But it's gonna starting getting bigger and bigger. Then please wait and try to balance the expectation of management if you are e-commerce team, right?
And just one additional thing, I think my bosses will probably like, what? When I say this, but basically, I think it's very difficult in some ways to drive this without having like a really fully functional e-commerce unit. But I think as a business, they're always going to look at what is the ROI, and it's not paying off to just give you the headcount. That's not going to happen. It's exactly as Kun Jung said at L'Oreal. But you have to actually keep the faith and do it first, but at the same time, keep pushing that that you do need someone like really focus on it, because like I'm actually torn on like about 1 million things a day, and we could do better if there was actually a dedicated resource, and it doesn't get to 10% like Kun Pawoot says immediately, and you have to set that manage that expectation. But you can say, okay, I can get to 10% if you give me what to work with, and they have to make that decision. And I think it hasn't changed yet, and it might not change that quickly, because the perception is that, oh, it's so small. Yes, you're growing fast, but you're so small. But the perception will change as soon as like things will tip over, and you want to be ready, because maybe suddenly they're like, okay, I don't care about the P&L, I'm going to absorb that, and I'm going to say, I'm going to give it to you, whatever you need. And that will come. I actually believe that that will come. It's just not happening now. It might not happen next year, but we don't know when it's going to happen. And would you rather be left behind, or would you rather be there and be ready for it?
Or maybe you can starting with the e-marketplace because it's cheaper, you can control everything, right? And when the e-marketplace sales is getting better, and then you can start your own, full team of e-commerce that maybe is good for brand.
Yeah, I think we have the same experience. I think we see e-commerce requires a lot of people, right? I mean, the marketplace is the same thing, right? I mean, you have a lot of people in Lazada running Lazada just in Thailand, right? E-commerce is not something you do on the side, right? You really need like dedicated resource to run it. The last question from my side, and then maybe we can take some question from the audience. Obviously, a lot of international brands, when they look at e-commerce in Thailand, they will try to replicate something that they have done in other markets like China, the US, Europe, etc. In your experience, right, what can be learned from these examples? Like if we take China, for example, because a lot of companies now say, look, in China, in 5 years, we went from 0% to 10%, 20% of our sales online, right? And they put pressure on the local teams to achieve the same results, right? So what can be learned first from China, and what is needed to achieve this level, this kind of success story in Thailand?
I think if you look at China, the first thing you can learn is that how big and successful e-commerce has been in that part of the world, and how successful it's been in particular categories, right? So I think that's the first thing that everyone should look at and thinks, okay, but if it's successful there, what's going to happen to Southeast Asia? And then for us, the second point that we always try to stress is, okay, let's look at what are the ingredients that made e-commerce so successful in China, and are these ingredients somewhere also in Southeast Asia? I think yes. So there is a lot of things, that they are making the market very interesting, like very low retail penetration. It's kind of very internet savvy population, right? There is a lot of people spend time on social media, chat application. They engage a lot when they buy item with mobile phones. They search for specification, they search for price, and then they take a decision to buy either online or offline. But I think most important is also the behavior of this guy is changing significantly. They spend more and more time on internet, and you guys from brands, you know that, and you're investing more and more budget to reach them. So in terms of what we can learn from China, I think the first point is that it takes the smartest guy in the room to run your e-commerce business. I don't think it's something you can delegate to some newbie or newcomer. You need to have a lot of focus. You need to have the senior focus on this platform. And you need to have the CEO of your company or the general manager being updated on a weekly basis on what is the development of e-commerce. I think most of the big international brands, they're already doing it. I think L'Oreal, the CEO is heavily involved here in Thailand. I think other general managers are also very involved. But I think what is very important is you can learn a lot and you can try to replicate. I think there is no reason why you should not try things that are successful in China and see if they work here. Then if they don't work, that's the time where we can try to do something different. But we come from a rocket, right? It's an incubator that tries business that are very successful in other country, in country where this business are not there. So I think the best way just to try. And the thing we think is very important is use data to take decision. I think the level of data that you can have from internet and from e-commerce is so much higher and detailed and qualified than what you can get from traditional retailer. And you need to use this data to take the right decision and to change your strategy ongoing. I think e-commerce you can try. We can change things every day. Why should we do it and try to see what works best?
Kun Sao?
Okay, I'll share from, I mean, I agree with Alessandro, but I also share from a kind of brand perspective as well. I think in China, our business is huge and it's really growing well. But from a brand perspective, I think you have to, things change a lot on, like China team is very successful because they explore all this testing and options. Of course, they run like A/B testing like crazy. It just, you know, you get to conversion rates where I'm green with envy because it's like, okay, how do you get there? But it's a lot of work that they go into it and in data mining. But a lot of it is also building the brand outside. You can't separate it. And I think you have to see it as a total you know, exercise. You cannot just think of like what is, like you think offline and online as the same thing integrated. And the other thing is like you have to be open to what the consumer, the market is. I think China was very specific in let's say the luxury division on looking at what the market is. We're not globally allowed to be on a pure e-retailer site. That's actually a global policy because of the brand image control. But China, for the first time, actually said, okay, we have some issues in the local market, which is the gray market. And the gray market in China is really, I mean, you think that Thailand has it bad, China has it much worse. And they decided to go in and say Tmall is a good example and said, okay, for the first time ever, and they fight with the management and said, this is what the local market is. And they said, we need to get rid of the gray market. And if we're losing sales to this gray market, so why don't we like try to just go in and capitalize on this? And they sign with the exclusion of Kiehl, but some of the brands have gone in and say, okay, we will sell on Tmall if you remove all your, like make sure that you cease all your gray markets brand, like sellers basically. And that's actually a first for L'Oreal, and that would never happen maybe in some other markets. So one of the things that makes it so successful is they say this is what the market is, and we adapt to what the market is. And I think you have to do that with every country, like including Thailand that you go into, and you look at it from a total brand perspective. You don't look at it, you know, just like okay, this channel and that channel, and so they make it so successful in that way, and still managing the brand and saying, okay, we need to have like kind of shop in shop, we have to have certain things, and you can still control it. So you never know what could be it for. It depends on the landscape. Like here, if it's a marketplace, what other things, even if they say, okay, it cannot be done, then you explore why are the reasons that you need to really do it. That would be from a brand perspective.
Okay, I think when you're seeing something in from China or from the other countries, you cannot bring 100% to the local, because sometimes some features might work in China, but sometimes not really work in Thailand. Something like who knows that okay, in USA credit cards one are the top spending and usage in USA, but in South Asia credit cards one of the not many people using that. Like a COD is one of the top people spending that, and also some like a business model cannot really applying to to the local market, because sometimes the behavior of people will change. That means if you see something from the international market, you cannot applying to the local market immediately. You have to see what maybe you can test it. Okay, how the customer react with your the new strategy that you following from the international market. That might work sometime, but the good thing that you can see, you have a lot of case that what you should do, but please be careful, because sometimes you cannot apply 100% with the local market, and some feature and some function might be something who knows that something like classifieds really work. Social media is really work in Thailand. A lot of people selling to the Instagram, to the Facebook. That's huge, right? Many brands not step into that yet. That's something is not not in Japan. They're not like that. They're not in USA. They're not like that. But in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Indonesia, the people love social media, social commerce. They bought something a lot in there. That you have to see. The most important is checking your customer, what their behavior and where they are, and then just get into that. Yeah.
Thank you. Now I would like to open some questions to the audience. And so if you have any question, please raise your hand. Can we have a mic?
Hello. Yeah, so I'm curious, if you're a brand and you've decided that you're going to go online, what's the experience from the marketplace perspective and from the brand perspective of doing the initial integration, right? From you got your IT systems you need to integrate, have the companies, do the brands typically, their IT systems are mature enough to do this, or is there a lot of custom development required? And also, organizing your SKUs and, you said you want to go. Now, what's the experience or challenges from both the brand perspective and the marketplace perspective for integration?
I think for me, when for me, when I'm talking with the brand, want to go to online, I say that, okay, firstly, do not do the integration yet, because you don't know that, okay, what's going on. You don't know what you have to do, right? Then just do something like start small. And then when everything growing bigger and bigger, and when the operation more fit, and then in that time when we talk about how we integrating with big ERP or with your back end, I think that's better. Because if you do something, hey, I want the integration, but maybe a few days later, okay, you found that, hey, I have to change to the front end. I have to change something there, but then you have to change to the integration to that that takes a lot of time. And then we talk about the timeline to launch the project. If you talk about the integration, it may took 6 months to doing that. But if you talk about only front end, just only do front end, and then after that we do like a manual operation to make sure everything is settled. I think maybe if we talk about a few months, we can launch the project from the marketplace.
From a brand perspective, I think we were actually quite fortunate because aCommerce actually took care of all the the design, from end to end, basically the design to the logistics part. And in terms of our IT system or what has to be integrated, actually it wasn't very much at the start. And so they kind of just did everything, and it was kind of separate in some ways. But the challenges were that we had to get, even our IT wasn't being used per se, it's not on our system, but they had to approve it with customer security database and all that sort of stuff. So the painful part actually is true come from the integration. We integrated with how to log it onto our POS system. We have a system that logs on our customer, and have to integrate that before you then can integrate the CRM program, which is then another system, and that took, I don't know, a year really. I mean, it's really quite painful because everyone also sits in different locations, being I think one of our partners in Singapore, another one is actually based in China, and then another one and you're just trying to get just the data to match, just to get the sales to match was actually crazy. But I think you can't, if you start with that, then you'll never kind of get there. You have to just kind of be quick and do the basic first, and then you start to add on. It's a never-ending job actually. You will have more to do because it will always be something else that you want to do.
So I mean, just to add to that, I think that's one of the key service we at aCommerce we do for some of our clients, because some of our clients, they need this kind of integrations, right? You have big companies working on SAP, working on their POS, etc., and they need to replicate it online. It's definitely doable. Anything is doable, right? And then you have some marketplaces like Lazada, for example, which have very strong backends, and then you can really integrate it, but it has a cost, and I think it needs to be factored in the overall business plan. And there might be also reasons to try before, to start before with a more manual way and then integrate later, right? But in the end, anything is possible, and ultimately our goal, right, is to run all of these things automatically, meaning to be able to sync fully the offline system with anything that we are doing online. I think our time is up. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for sharing. I think we got a lot of great insight today, and hopefully it helps all of you. Thank you.